And welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Ted Flint. Joining us today, Assemblyman Paul Bologna, who serves District Number 144, the counties Erie and Niagara. Assemblyman Bologna, good to see you as always.
Ted, thank you very much for having me on. Good to see you.
Beautiful day. It's been a great stretch of weather, temperatures in the 70s, but the heating season is right around the corner. We're going to be in the 30s later in the week, and I have not yet opened my national grid bill for September because I'm afraid to. And you and I have talked about this numerous occasions. The utility costs are going up, cost of heating homes and the like. And we have a clip of you. You held a press conference recently with some of your colleagues on this issue. Let's look at what you said then, and we'll have more to talk about it. You have some updates for us on this. All right, let's look at it. We'll come back with Assemblyman Paul Bologna.
What these plans, what the CLCPA is doing, is we're going to be mandating more people onto that electric grid. So if anyone's actually taken 2 seconds to read the draft plan or what's in the CLCPA, my colleagues are right that it has a focus on renewable energy. So what these policies or these agendas keep talking about are energy source, not how you're going to get the energy from the source to your business, to your homeowner. If you go through these plans, words like substations, transmission, distribution are suspiciously missing from a lot of this. So I don't care if you have Niagara Falls, mix it with Victoria Falls. I don't care what the hell you have. Even if we had a nuclear facility that was up and running, it doesn't matter because you can't get the power from the source to people's homes. No one seems to be talking about that. And none of these plans and none of these policies include any of that.
I think you're pretty clear on there. The infrastructure is not yet there. Give us hopefully some good news on this front.
I don't have much. That's the problem. I've been working with my colleagues in here, especially here in Western New York. And in the past couple of weeks, we've drafted a letter to the governor, basically asking her to use an executive action to make an executive order that would place a moratorium or a pause on any of the benchmarks that are starting in 2026. So this would include the electric vehicle mandates in 2026, and this would include the new constructions being required to be all electric. All that stuff we're requesting a moratorium on. So in addition to that, I've actually drafted legislation that would put a moratorium on all benchmarks, anything to do with the CLCPA for a minimum of 5 years. I've also drafted a legislation that would fully repeal the CLCPA. And I've also drafted legislation that would allow individual municipalities to opt out of the CLCPA and any of the benchmarks. So basically anything that we could possibly do to give communities energy choice is what I'm trying to do. And it's definitely, rowing against the current, if you will. But I think it's really going to hit the fan come January. And I think that people's utility bills are going to continue to rise, as more and more people get mandated to be put on the grid, and we're stretching that capacity thinner and thinner and thinner. I think we're going to start to see a cavalcade of negative effects on consumers that is going to force the hand of the governor and the legislature to take action.
The word you use there that stuck out to me is mandated. And I like the opt-out component of that. You're letting municipalities, localities opt out if they so choose. If people want to go through with this, go ahead with this, fine. But why not give people the choice?
And again, I have said this since before I ever even ran. Wouldn't you want to have every energy option on the table? I have nothing against renewable energy sources. I don't think anyone does. Solar, wind, phenomenal. But we should supplement what we have with clean natural gas, with nuclear power, any other emerging energy sources that come available. And really what that does is that creates a market, that creates competition, and that should lower energy costs for everyone across the board. It is really not that difficult of a concept to understand. And the governor and my colleagues from downstate can't have it both ways. They can't preach affordability. They can't preach affordable housing. They can't preach affordable energy and then still move forward with the energy policies that New York State has. It's a circle that doesn't square. So you cannot have it both ways.
One of the factoids that was released during one of your press conferences was that 71% of New Yorkers are against this, are against. So who's for it? Is it part of an agenda? I mean, if most New Yorkers are against it, why are we getting it?
There is a very small, very loud faction of you know what, I'll call them environmental enthusiasts. And I think that there is a disconnect between the policy that they're pushing and the result that it's going to have. I don't think that there is a true understanding of how energy works. I don't think there's a true understanding of how that impacts our environment. And frankly, I don't think a lot of the initiatives that are put forth in the CLCPA are actually all that great for the environment anyway. So I think that there is a misunderstanding of the policy and the result. And that is something I think we're going to need to fix going forward.
Let's talk about, Paul, the prison system in New York State, which, as you know, I think is broken. The governor recently fired 2,000 corrections officers. The Department of Corrections has come up with some recommendations. We have a clip of you speaking at an event on this recently. Let's look at that, and we'll come back and you can elaborate further with Assemblyman Paul Bologna.
I want people to understand this. The very same people that were so hell-bent on passing the Clean Slate Act, which literally seals felony and misdemeanor records from potential employers, are now the very same people that want to prevent 2,000 corrections officers who were never charged with or convicted of a crime from ever working in public service again.
That's pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, so we need to start at the beginning of this whole thing. And, you know, obviously everyone knows in the beginning of this year, there were wildcat strikes throughout prisons all throughout New York State. And a large part of that was because of the HALT Act. And the HALT Act essentially dictates what corrections officers are able to do within a prison to keep themselves safe, inmates safe, staff safe. Yeah. And there is this basically the shift in logic and thinking within New York State, within the legislature from the far left, that basically gives, you know, deference to the convicted, to criminals, and contempt for law enforcement. So after these wildcat strikes, basically the governor, charged docs with putting together a HALT committee to maybe polish and massage some of these things, so corrections officers be a little bit safer, in doing their job. Problem is that to act on any of these or implement any of these, policy, recommendations, the legislature has to approve them. And I got to tell you something, the governor and the legislature have not been too keen on public safety. So unless they discover a commitment to public safety real quick, I don't really have a lot of hope and faith that this is going to be actually implemented anytime soon.
I think everybody can agree that we want corrections officers and inmates safer. And the recommendation.
You'd be shocked. There are some colleagues that I have in the legislature that to their core philosophically believe that corrections officers and law enforcement is the problem. That's a problem. That is a problem. It is, but that's what they believe. They believe that law enforcement abuses power and, basically perpetuates this cycle of abuse in certain communities. And again, I'm not from those communities, so I don't, I can't relate to or understand where that's coming from. But from my vantage point, what I'm supposed to do here in the assembly is make sure that my constituents are safe. And how we keep our constituents safe, or at least how I believe that, is that we need to give law enforcement the tools to do what they do best. Basically, catch the bad guys and make sure that they're put away and they're not a threat to the public. So whether it's the cop on the beat on the street, or whether it is a corrections officer in our prison system, I believe that we should give them the tools that they need to do their job safely, keep themselves safe, and keep the incarcerated individuals safe as well. So that we have a philosophical difference in how best to do that.
Well put. That's a good place to end it. If you want to get in touch with Assemblyman Paul Bologna, you can dial him up at his district office in Clarence at 716-839-4691. Assemblyman Paul Bologna, good to talk to you. As always, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Ted. Great being on with you.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us on Assembly Update. I'm Ted Flint.